Team Mode is the newest way to play Disney Speedstorm, and it features an entirely different meta from solo mode, with a lot of racers that previously never shined in solo mode rising to the top of teams, and unfortunately the opposite has happened too, where characters who have been really good in solos in the past are unfortunately very bad in team mode. And so in today's video, I'm going to be going over the top 5 worst racers for team mode in Disney Speedstorm, these characters that I would just not recommend playing in this game mode. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Starting it off with the 5th worst character in team mode, we have Donald Duck. Now, Donald Duck has been suffering recently in this top speed meta, but fortunately last season he was buffed twice, one to his top speed and one to the manual boost that he gets during the normal activation of his ability. Both very solid buffs that I think have made Donald actually a much better character in solo mode, but unfortunately team mode just doesn't work for Donald. Donald's kit is very fun. It's one of my favorite kits in the game actually, but it focuses him on getting him into first place and then staying there by stunning anyone that tries to pass him using his shields and his offensive abilities like fire and his charged ability and stuff like that. And unfortunately with team mode, Donald just doesn't have enough people to stun and gatekeep because 2 of the players are on his team and there's only 3 opponents. So Donald's whole cycle of, farming manual boost by stunning people and staying in first place by that just doesn't work in teams. And on top of that, his top speed still isn't great, so he's just not a great character in general. Yes, he is a lot better than he was last season where he was indisputably the worst character in the game, but still the buffs just weren't everything he needed, and on top of that, team mode doesn't really help his playstyle. He's just not built for the game mode, and you can tell. And because of that, the not synergizing with any teams or whatever, he gets 5th place for me. He's not the worst option, and yes, if you're a Donald main and you love Donald, take this list with a grain of salt. I truly think you can be good with any character in any game mode if you try hard enough and you invest enough into that character. But, Donald, I just don't think he's doing it this season for me in team mode. But moving on to 4th place, we have Eve. Now, much like Donald, Eve has been struggling recently, but unlike Donald, Eve did not receive any buffs, and so I think Eve is just one of the worst characters in the game in general, but much like Donald, Eve doesn't really work in team mode either. One, I just think Eve's kit is extremely clunky. She has abilities like a brawler, she has stats, similar to a brawler, and yet she's a defender. For some reason, she is a shield defender, not even a cloak defender, which is, the best class ability combination in the game. No, she's a shield defender, and she has these weird brawler-like abilities that aren't even that effective. She has a worst version of Olaf's snowballs, or Stitch's normal lasers, and then she has this weird laser grid in front of her, which just feels like a clunkier version of Triton's normal activation, which I think is already one of the clunkiest skills in the game. And on top of that, these abilities, all they do is stun people, and if you're a character where all you do is stun people, you are going to be downright worse in team mode because there are less people to stun, meaning you're going to have less to do throughout the entire game. And yes, you can stun people to try and help your teammates pass them, and that's really good if you're like Jumba and you can specifically target them, but Eve's low top speed and low ability to catch up, she's not going to be able to get into a position where she can stun people. She's just going to be stuck sitting behind, desperately trying to shoot her lasers in front of her or hoping someone runs into her laser grid. And it's just not good. Eve desperately needs some kind of buff. I don't know. For me, her kit is just so clunky, and team mode really shows its flaws. If they weren't apparent enough in solo mode, they're definitely apparent in team mode. It just doesn't work for me. I don't know. I don't like Eve in team mode. I don't think she synergizes with anyone super well. There's not really a good pairing here where you can put Eve with someone and then she becomes OP. No, nothing like that. I just don't think Eve is a great character. And that's why she takes the 4th worst spot for me. But moving on to number 3, taking the bronze medal for worst characters in the game, we have Ortensia. Now, I have quite a history with Ortensia. She was probably the longest push to diamond I ever had to do in solo mode, and she's been consistently one of the worst characters in the game with a relatively low top speed, buggy abilities, and overall just a lackluster kit. Now, Ortensia was actually indirectly buffed this season because of the Speedster, passive change, but I just don't think it was enough. I think Ortensia is still rather clunky. She is a rush speedster, which is my personal favorite, class skill combination in the game, but it is one of the worst, unfortunately. Speedsters still aren't great even after their manual boost buff. Unfortunately. And Ortensia, her flowers are still clunky. When you use the offensive flowers, sometimes they don't always register hits, so you'll run into people and they don't get stunned. And then with her healthy flowers, her healing, her invulnerability flowers, shield flowers, whatever you want to call them, sometimes they don't always shield Ortensia properly, and when you use your own abilities, sometimes it will get rid of the flowers. This has been a problem with Ortensia for a while, and why she has been consistently bottom 10 in the solo mode. But team mode, again, just like even Donald, really makes Ortensia worse because she is here to stun people and to protect herself from people. And there's less people you need protecting from, and there's less people that you need to stun. And because of that, she's not going to be as good. Again, only 3 opponents really makes a big difference and isn't something I see enough people talking about, in my opinion. Just because normally there's 7 opponents in any given race at a time, so when you cut that number in half, it's going to make a character a lot worse that normally relies on either stunning people or, protecting themselves from stuns. Because Ortensia, I don't know, her kit, again, just like Eve, it doesn't really work for me because she is striving to stun people and protect herself, and yet she has almost no reward to do so. She doesn't have a top speed. It's not like, Ariel, where Ariel is super rewarded for using Cloak because her top speed is so high. Ortensia shields herself and gets almost nothing for it. Yes, she's not going to be slowed down by stuns, but it's not like she's thriving either way. Unlike a character like Vanellope, who is a rush speedster as well, and I think has a much better design because her ability actually not only does it protect her, but it excels her speed forward and covers her weakness of an extremely low top speed, making her an actually good character, whereas Ortensia has that same extremely low top speed, but rather than her ability helping, propel herself to a higher position, it's just kind of keeping her down there. And yeah, she's not getting stunned, but it's not doing anything for her either. And that's why Ortensia is the 3rd worst character in team mode, in my opinion. Coming in at the number 2 spot, we have Lilo. Now, Lilo, it pains me to put her here because Lilo has grown on me a lot recently. I actually like playing Lilo a lot, but I just think she's so bad. Whether it's teams or solos, I think Lilo is just awful. There are so many situations where Lilo's unique ability is downright useless. The surfboard barely goes faster than her normally boosting. In fact, I don't even know if it does. I think Lilo boosting is faster than her surfboard, so you'd be better off, instead of using her surfboard, unless you're going around a super tight turn, like some of the tracks have that, unless you're going around a super tight turn, Lilo's ability is just useless in a lot of situations because there's no one around to take pictures of with your camera. Again, less people in this game mode, I've said it over and over again, and her surfboard, it got nerfed a while back where it doesn't stun people behind her, still has that, still not good, her top speed is still low, and a lot of the times using her surfboard is just not useful. And a character with a low top speed being a part of the worst class in the game with a unique ability that can be just completely useless in certain situations is just a recipe for disaster, and that's why Lilo is down this low. I think she's a similar placement in the solo mode, to be honest, because even though, yes, there are more opponents to take pictures of, oftentimes Lilo will fall behind, and I think if her surfboard was redesigned to be faster, maybe instead of having the wave trail behind her that no longer stuns people, maybe have a wave that propels Lilo forward. Maybe make her more like Aladdin, where her charged ability can actually be useful in certain situations to catch her up to the rest of the pack, rather than just float her by at a leisurely pace, because that is just not a good ability for Lilo. If she had something that propelled her forward, and then she could be amongst the crowd and take pictures of them using her normal activation, that could be a really good combo and actually a well-designed kit, and that's almost what she was like, before. She could take pictures of people with her normal activation, get ahead of the pack, and then use the surfboard to keep herself in front while stunning people behind her, and it was a really good combination. But now that her surfboard doesn't stun people and her top speed is so low, Lilo is just not doing it for me, and that's why she is the 2nd worst character in team mode. But moving on to first place, the moment you all have been waiting for, the absolute worst character, in my opinion, in team mode, is King Candy. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I like King Candy. I enjoy playing as him, but his top speed is the lowest in the game now by quite a big margin now that Donald Duck has been buffed. King Candy is so slow. He's a trickster, which is good because he can boost almost the entire game if you're drifting properly, which is really, really nice, but that boost is not enough to save his abysmal top speed. And on top of that, much like the other characters on the list, his ability is not any more useful in team mode than it is in solo, where he was already one of the worst characters in the game. In fact, I think his ability is worse in teams because, again, it's built around stunning people and there's less people to stun. I will say I do like his big candy ball in this mode. It's kind of good at keeping, the other team behind your team, but it's not that good at doing that. Like, there's way better options. Triton's Wave is the first one that comes to mind, and Triton's not even amazing. It's so much better than King Candy. Mulan's Blast, Elizabeth Swan's Trail. There's plenty of abilities if you want to keep the enemy team behind you. Jumba's probably the best example. And so King Candy's abilities really aren't doing it for me, especially when all they do is stun people and generate boost for him that he doesn't really need because, again, he's a trickster, he can boost infinitely. But really, King Candy's biggest flaw is his top speed. We are in a top speed meta. Top speed is king. And King Candy, ironically, doesn't have very much of it. The slowest character in the game for some reason. And yes, before any of you commented, I know Fear and Disgust actually have lower top speed stats, like when you go look at their stat pools, but it's actually bugged, and Fear and Disgust, or not Fear, yeah, Fear and Disgust, their top speed is actually equivalent to like Felix and Vanellope. They have the exact same miles per hour cap as them, so it's likely that their top speed is bugged, and King Candy is still the lowest, despite the new emotions being bugged, which, unfortunate for him, he's not gonna cut it. It's not happening. King Candy, I think he is by far the worst character in the game. I mean, every top player I asked about this list all unanimously agreed that King Candy was just awful and definitely deserved a spot in the top 5. So that's why he is being placed down here. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this list. Who is your personal top 5 worst characters for team mode in Disney Speedstorm? I'm really curious to hear all of your guys' thoughts. And again, take this list with a grain of salt. I really do believe that any character can be good if you try hard enough. I know some people who personally main King Candy and they have great success with him because they know how to use his kit properly and can outskill lesser experienced opponents. But I think just competitively speaking, if you're jumping into the game, every character at their fullest potential, this is where they rank. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everyone.